For a few days, sticky notes started showing up around my place. The handwriting looked exactly like mine, but I had zero memory of writing them. I figured I was just tired and forgetting things. Then the notes got weirdly specific, even listing times like a schedule. So I put a small camera facing the front door, nothing fancy, motion detection on, and I told myself I would only check if it happened again. On the third night, the footage showed me walking out at dawn. Eyes open, face blank, I posted another note and went back like it was normal. What bothered me more was what I did next, opening the window and just standing there. In the mornings, I kept getting headaches, even though I hadn't been drinking. When I asked for a checkup, they found signs of backdraft near the vent. I got a paper marked case 43, and the first thing I installed was a co-alarm. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. Lately, every morning I woke up with a pounding headache and nausea. It eased after coffee, so I kept brushing it off like it was nothing. After it repeated for over a week, it started to feel oddly patterned. So I began putting tiny check marks on the calendar beside my desk. As the marks piled up, I also wrote down what I did the night before. That is when I noticed every bad morning matched nights I ran the boiler. I tested it by cracking a window on a night the boiler was running. The next morning felt better, and I realized the bathroom vent was clogged. That night, I placed a small alarm near the bedroom like a safety notice suggested. It chirped softly before dawn, and my body went cold before my mind caught up. When I called for an inspection, they said the exhaust was loose and fumes were leaking in. After ventilation and a replacement, I was fine again, but now I check the window first every time. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. My phone buzzed at night, so I opened the entry history. At 3:12 am, there was a single failure log sitting there like a sore thumb. The next morning, I stepped into the hallway and the motion light was already on. The desk said it had turned on once during the night again. So the next night, I stayed half awake on purpose. Around 3:12, I heard a soft click from the door and the hallway suddenly brightened. It did not feel like a horror movie, so I put a tiny strip of masking tape on the door gap. In the morning, the tape was wrinkled and the door looked slightly unlatched. Later, I got a notice saying the motion light sensitivity had been temporarily raised. It also mentioned a nightly ventilation fan that can create a slight draft near doors. The technician realigned the strike plate and adjusted the door closer. The log stopped after that, but I still check my phone when 3:12 rolls around. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. Lately, only in the living room, I kept feeling like I couldn't breathe. So I started cracking the window open, and that's when the weird pattern began. A few minutes after opening the window, a sharp chirp came from the ceiling. The alarm suddenly showed a low battery warning, and I froze for a second. It happened again at dawn, so I recorded the beep pattern on my phone. But the moment I closed the window, it went quiet, which made it feel worse. I swapped the battery, wiped the dust, and even ran the test button. Still, whenever I opened the window, the warning came back, and I got oddly on edge. On a windy day, cold air rushed in through the gap like a stream. When I saw that draft heading straight toward the alarm, the pieces finally started to line up. The checkup said the battery was already weak, and the cold draft dropped its voltage enough to trigger the warning. After moving the alarm and clearing what was blocking ventilation, the breathless feeling disappeared too. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. At night, a tiny tick-tick started coming from my ceiling. I got tense fast, convinced it had to be footsteps from upstairs. But on rainy days, the ticking sped up like it was sinking with the rain. That pattern made it worse because it felt too deliberate to ignore. So I recorded it on my phone and jotted the dates down. Clear days were sparse, but any rain forecast turned it into a rapid tap. I finally filed a maintenance request, and my ticket ended up as number 40. Until the visit, I kept catching myself staring at the ceiling in silence. When they opened the access panel, the answer was sitting right there. Rainwater was dripping onto a metal bracket, and each drop sounded like a knock. They resealed the gap and added a small drip guard, and the noise stopped that day. It was never the upstairs neighbor, just a leak that only woke up when it rained. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. After my 7 a.m. shower, the fog hit the exact same spot for 5 days straight. If the mirror is coming loose, that can turn into a real safety issue, so I checked right away. So I rubbed only that spot with a dry towel for 10 seconds. Instead of clearing, A thin straight streak stayed there, and it felt weirdly specific. When I realized it wasn't on the surface, I angled my phone flashlight at about 45 degrees. In the reflection, a yellowish adhesive line showed up inside, so I snapped 3 photos. Just in case, I sprayed glass cleaner and wiped that line twice. The front looked spotless, but the mark stayed exactly the same, so it had to be behind the glass. I attached the photos and requested an inspection, and they showed up the next day at 11:30. The note literally said double-sided tape residue on the back, and that explained the pattern. Cause was simple. Tape on the back blocked heat, so steam kept condensing there, and they removed it and remounted the mirror. Tip: if the fog hits the same spot 3 times, do the flashlight check and get it inspected before you pry at anything. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. At 0:47, I reached under my bed and found a key I had never seen before. A parking payment receipt was tied to the keyring, so I had to check it before it turned into a real problem. I unfolded the receipt and it said 3001 with a timestamp of 01588. I was home at that time, which made it feel less like a mistake and more like something I should verify. So I checked the entry history from my front door, and the last log was at 18/20/20. No overnight record showed up, so I decided to recheck the receipt details instead of jumping to conclusions. When I flattened the receipt completely, the date read 12/2028 and the time was L1:58. Once I knew it was not from today, the key started to look like an old leftover, not a recent entry. I wiped the key with a tissue and dark dust came off twice, like it had been there for a while. My move-in checklist still said bed area not checked, so I figured it slid under there during the move. In the end, it was a previous tenant's parking access key, and I turned it in as lost and found. I changed my door code right away, and my tip is simple: scan under the bed with a flashlight on day 1. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. My place always smelled sweet, but it was noticeably stronger right around one outlet. I knew leaving it alone could be dangerous, so I decided to check immediately. So at 22:04C, I turned off the power strip and smelled right next to that outlet. It was not air freshener at all, it was that sweet burnt plastic kind of smell. So I used my phone flashlight and looked closely around the outlet cover. I could see yellow discoloration at the bottom edge and one thin scorch line right under the plate. So I unplugged the charger brick from that outlet and checked the label. It said 65W output, and the casing still felt warm even after I switched the strip off. In the end, it was loose contact overheating the outlet, which explained the sweet burnt smell and the yellowing. I cut the power and had it inspected and replaced, and the tip is simple: if an outlet smells sweet and burnt, unplug and check right away. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. Lately, my fridge door kept cracking open by about 1 cm. I checked right away because I didn't want food to spoil. So I closed it and watched for 10 seconds. The top edge popped out first and a gap slowly appeared. To test it, I slid a thin paper strip along the door edge. On the upper left, it slipped out with almost no resistance. Then I pressed the gasket with my finger and one side was visibly flattened. Right next to it, there was a sticky smear about 2 cm wide. In the end, the seal had hardened while flattened, so the door never fully latched. I cleaned it with warm water and warmed it with a hairdryer for 30 seconds and it went back to normal. Do the paper test around the whole door once. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. Around 2 a.m. again, the window was locked but the bottom corner of the screen was lifted. If I ignored it, bugs could get in or I could miss a real security issue, so I checked. So I turned on my phone flashlight and took a photo of that corner. When I zoomed in, I could see a tiny fiber, about 3 mm long, wedged in the gap. I used a single strip of tape to pull the fiber out, but right under it there were 2 thin drag marks on the frame, like something kept rubbing there. So at 11 p.m. I did a quick test and tucked a tiny piece of paper in that corner. At 7 a.m., the paper was on the floor and the corner was lifted again. In the end, I followed the maintenance note and pressed the bottom roller and one side was loose, so it kept lifting, while the fiber was from a cleaning brush. I tightened the roller screw and snapped on a corner cap, and the tip is to mark the corner with one tape line to spot changes fast. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. At 02:47 last night, the baby monitor picked up a breathing-like sound. I could not ignore it because that can turn into a real safety issue. So I opened the device access history in the app right away. At 0312, it showed an entry labeled Unknown Device 1. So step 1 was changing the password and signing out the unknown device. Right after, a warning said new device login within the last 7 days. But the sound still bothered me, so I checked the microphone area on the unit. The waterproof tape I had placed near the camera was peeled halfway off, so I closed the window, turned off the air purifier, and listened again. The breathing-like sound was wind noise, and the unknown device log was an old tablet auto login, so I fixed it with a password change and two-step verification. Quick tip, screenshot your device list monthly and sign out anything you do not recognize. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. A motion detected alert popped from my door camera, so I tapped it right away, and nobody was there. If you skip checks like this, you can trigger false reports or paid alarms. At 2:13 am, I got 3 motion alerts back to back. When I opened the event clip, the detection box only flashed on the left edge of the threshold. But the timeline only showed a light log at 0214, brightness 80 down to 30. I tapped the light history and it said manual switch touches 0. The next night at 01:58, it happened again, so I opened the camera settings immediately. Night assist light was set to auto, and the log showed apply 30% right after the alert. It was headlight reflections from the road tripping motion, then the assist feature dropping the light to 30%, and turning it off plus lowering sensitivity from 8 to 4 stopped it. When it pings, screenshot the timeline and the setting page and match the times first. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. A strange device named Living Room Cam 2 was on my Wi-Fi. When the list shows 12 devices, you check it right away. It looked normal, but its first seen time was 0213. I opened details and screenshotted the MAC ending in 78. In the DTP log, it grabbed IP 19.2, 860, 819.7, 23 times every 3 minutes. I exported the log so the date stays. I tapped block, yet 7 minutes later it came back as Living Room Cam 3. The prefix A47C matched, so it was the same device. WPS was left on, and the log said WP success is 0213, so I turned WPS off and set a 16-char password. Tip, if WPS is on, turn it off now. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. I bought a used home camera and its view sometimes shifted, so I had to check it because privacy could be at risk. Around 11 p.m. there was a log showing the angle changed. So I opened the app history to check the exact time. In the admin settings, there were 2 accounts listed, and one of them was not created by me. The access history showed logins twice a week, so I took screenshots to keep clear evidence. The cause was a device sold without reset, so I removed all accounts and did a factory reset. Always do this first. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe. If your door lock battery dies fast and the same press mark appears on the keypad, you need to check it. The scary part is you might think someone is trying your door. In just 3 days, it beeped low battery, so I replaced 4 cells for 12,001. Right after, I saved a photo of the screen showing low battery as proof. At 11:10 p.m. I wiped the keypad and took a photo, no dent at all. But at 4:12 am, the same spot showed a mark again. My first check was simple. I screenshotted the failed attempts line in the lock menu. If it says failed 3, either someone pressed it or the panel woke up by itself. My second check was about power drain. I recorded whether the keypad light turned on by itself at night. If it lights up 5 times between 1 and 2 am, the battery drain makes sense. The cause was moisture and residue, making the keypad think the same spot was being touched, so it drained power and left a mark. I dried it fully, removed the film, and lowered the touch sensitivity setting, and the quick tip is to wipe it dry and keep a silica pack nearby for 24 hours. That's all for today's story. We'll be back every day with a new one. If you want to catch tomorrow's story too, please like and subscribe.